The first entry into the MCU was in 2008, and since then we have been given a decade full of amazing movies. Although every single one of the MCU films is great in their own way, there have been quite a few mistakes in them. However, most of them are pretty small, so you would have probably missed them. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 10 of these really small mistakes that you missed. Number 1. Scarlet Witch's accent. Elizabeth Olsen did an amazing job of portraying Scarlet Witch on the big screen, but there has always been one huge problem to do with her characterization, and that is the accent. Scarlet Witch was raised in Sokovia, so she's supposed to have an Eastern European accent. However, throughout the MCU, her tone changes and becomes pretty shaky at times. Of course, there's no hate towards Olsen at all, because she's a very talented actor, but her accent during this movie wasn't the best. But no one can blame her, because most of the time they are pretty hard to pull off, especially this one. I think she noticed that she wasn't doing very well, and she decided to just completely get rid of the accent during Infinity War, which I believe was probably the best decision because it wouldn't have been very good to listen to her accent change for 2.5 hours. Number 2. Obadiah Stane is a fast learner. One of the weirdest mistakes that we get to see comes from Obadiah Stane in 2008's Iron Man. He was the film's main villain, and he was trying to get Tony Stark out of the picture because he had constructed his suit, which was based on Tony's design that he had built inside of a cave. We see Tony struggle many times while he was trying to figure out how to fly and use his invention correctly. So it's pretty confusing as to how Obadiah managed to figure everything out right after he built his suit. He was very comfortable using it right away after he took it for a test drive, which just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Number 3. Going subatomic shouldn't be possible. There are many specific issues within the MCU that we could look at, but one aspect that stands out more is the use of PIM particles. In Ant-Man, Hank explains that the particles shrink the space between atoms, which allows the user to shrink objects or themselves. The logic behind this falls apart completely when you realize that people can use these particles to go subatomic. If the particles truly only eliminated the space between atoms, then this should not be possible, but we see it happen anyway. Marvel finds it pretty hard to stay consistent with their science within the films, that's quite clear. Number 4. What happened to Nidavellir? During Infinity War, we learned that Thanos had completely taken out the dwarf homeland, known as Nidavellir, after Thor discovers what happened. Every single dwarf, apart from Eitri, had been taken out after they helped Thanos with his gauntlet. However, something doesn't add up. We saw the gauntlet back during the Age of Ultron, and that was 3 years before this movie. So has Nidavellir just been sitting there this whole time completely deserted for 3 years, with Eitri wandering around with his hands bound by metal? I find it hard to believe that nobody noticed that this was going on, if I'm honest. I feel that this was just a huge mistake on Marvel's behalf with their timeline. Number 5. Is Gamora the last of her people? During numerous points in Guardians of the Galaxy, we see discussions of Gamora being the last of her people, and we're told that this was because of Thanos. However, this isn't how Thanos works. He only takes out half of a planet's population, not all of them. So where did the other half of Gamora's people go? Doesn't make any sense. If Gamora is the last of her people, then something must have gone wrong. Either that or Marvel messed up. Number 6. Peter Parker isn't a millennial. Despite his age, Peter Parker has proved that he can hold his own in a fight as well as anybody else. Despite this, Tony Stark still sees him as a child and goes as far as calling him a millennial. However, this isn't true because he's 15 years old, meaning he would have been born in 2002 at the earliest. Someone born after 2000 is known as part of Generation Z, the Zoomers. So Peter isn't a millennial at all. He's always lived in a world of smartphones and the internet, whereas millennials used to rent DVDs and didn't know what Netflix was. So this is a little mistake on Marvel's behalf. Number 7. Where did Janet Van Dyne get those clothes? One of the biggest plot points during Ant-Man and the Wasp was the rescue of Janet Van Dyne, but there is something in this sequence that makes no sense. Janet Van Dyne was very wise beyond her years, and had developed strange abilities because of her exposure to quantum energy. But something that makes no sense is her clothes. They weren't just normal clothes, she was wearing a white robe and had some kind of staff with her. She wasn't trapped on Earth, she was stuck in a subatomic world, so where did she get items like this from? Number 8. How did Loki miss Hulk being on Sakaar? Thor Ragnarok was a pretty exciting film that gave us lots of fresh humor that the MCU was needing. In the film, we see Thor and Loki on Sakaar. However, Loki ended up there weeks before his brother. Despite this, he never noticed that Hulk was on the same planet as him. How? He got close with the Grandmaster, but completely missed that the Hulk was there with him as well? This makes absolutely no sense. When he first entered the arena, he looked really surprised to see Hulk. And during this moment, we realized that he had no idea he was there with him this whole time. I don't understand how Marvel expects us to believe that Loki didn't catch a glimpse of him before this. Number 9. Doctor Strange prepared badly for surgery. Although Stephen Strange is known as an incredible surgeon, he can't be that great because he didn't know how to properly prepare himself before surgery. If he was as amazing as people make him out, he would have known that after washing his hands, he shouldn't be putting on his surgical mask. That is a huge no-no in the medical world, as your hands are coming in contact with your face, which could potentially contaminate them. Number 10. Air Force One's windows. During Iron Man 3, we see a bad guy make his way aboard Air Force One in the Iron Patriot suit in the attempt to end the life of the leader of the free world. As he begins his attack, members of the Secret Service on the plane open fire, before they realize that their guns are useless against the suit. Something happens though within this scene that makes no sense, and it is the fact that when the bullets ricochet off the suit, they break the windows of the plane. The only problem is, in real life, Air Force One is designed with bulletproof windows. This is one case where filmmakers were stretching the boundaries of realism for the film, and it made no sense whatsoever. That's all for today though. What'd you think of today's video? Let us know in the comments below. But with that being said, this is the end of the video, so I'll see you in the next one.